Did you know for Blades of Glory, actors John Heder and Will Ferrell both learned how to ice skate for this movie? They trained extensively with Michelle Kwan's coach, Sarah Kawahara. 2. Originally, the roles of Chaz Michael Michaels and Jimmy McElroy were going to be played respectively by Ben Stiller and Will Ferrell. However, Stiller dropped out because he decided the character was too much like other roles he had played, so he instead stayed on as a producer. Ferrell chose to play Chaz Michael Michaels, and John Heder was subsequently cast as Jimmy McElroy. 3. The writers claimed that 88.773% of Will Ferrell's dialogue is improvised or changed in some way to suit his persona. 4. John Heder spent 2 years in Japan as a LDS missionary and learned to speak Japanese fluently. He showcased this talent during the press conference when he responded flawlessly to a reporter's question posed in Japanese. 5. Busy Phillips states in her autobiography that this film was her idea, and she was reluctantly given credit as a writer due to the film's vulnerability of a lawsuit and the rules of the Writers Guild. Did you know for Back to School, during the scene where Thornton is in Professor Turgeson's history class, and where Turgeson picks up the desk and throws it across the room while yelling at Thornton, if you look really closely, you can see that Rodney Dangerfield is laughing while Sam Kinison is yelling at him, trying to get him to answer the question. This take was ultimately left in the movie because Dangerfield had such a hard time keeping a straight face during his scene with Kinison that eventually Alan Metter decided to leave him laughing from a far distance in the final cut. 2. Rodney Dangerfield always looked out for younger comedic talents. He was a big proponent for Sam Kinison's part as a crazed professor in this movie. They also considered Jim Carrey, but he was rejected as too young. Later, when producer Chuck Russell got the chance to direct The Mask, he was finally able to use Jim Carrey. 3. In the original script, Rodney Dangerfield's character was poor. It was Harold Ramis's idea for his character to go back to school as a rich man. Once that was suggested, no one involved in this movie could imagine him going back to school any other way. Did you know for Hacksaw Ridge, according to director Mel Gibson, Desmond T. Doss's son, Desmond Jr., attended the screening and was moved to tears by Andrew Garfield's accurate portrayal of his dad. 2. Mel Gibson stated there were aspects of this event that were true, but that he couldn't include in the film because he felt people wouldn't believe they were true. Doss stepped on a grenade to save his buddies and was hit by shrapnel, but as he was being carried away by medics, he saw another soldier injured. Since Doss himself was a medic, he jumped off his stretcher and treated that soldier and told the medics to take care of other wounded soldiers. He then crawled back to safety while being aimed at by enemy snipers. While lowering men down the ridge, a Japanese soldier had Doss in his sights several times, and every time he did, his gun jammed, preventing him from shooting him. This was also for fear that no one would believe it. In reality, Doss's Bible went missing as he dragged himself to safety. Months after he was shipped home, he found it in the mail. His entire company, which once mocked him for his convictions, searched all over Hacksaw until they found it. Did you know for the Nutty Professor, the family scene was nearly cut out of the final film due to lack of relevance with the film's plot? But the Klump family turned out to be one of the most popular elements of the film, so much that the Klumps got a greatly expanded presence in the sequel, Nutty Professor 2, The Klumps. 2. Dave Chappelle said that Eddie Murphy complimented his stand-up work on his first day on the set. Chappelle really took that to heart as he cited Murphy as being a major influence on his career. In the scenes with Eddie Murphy and Dave Chappelle, their dialogue was mostly improvised. 3. The studio initially objected to having Eddie Murphy portray all the adult Klumps, since hiring 4 additional actors would be much cheaper than the additional filming days required for Murphy to undergo multiple costume and makeup changes. Murphy devised a special screen test with makeup artist Rick Baker, in which he portrayed Mama and Grandma Klump, to convince the studio executives otherwise. 4. This was the first Eddie Murphy movie of the 90s to reach over $100 million at the box office. Did you know for Birdman, given the unusual style of filming long takes, Edward Norton and Michael Keaton kept a running tally of flubs made by the actors and actresses. Emma Stone made the most mistakes. Zach Galifianakis made the fewest. He actually did mess up a few lines during the filming, but played his mistakes off well enough that the shots were included in the film. 2. Michael Keaton said this movie was the most challenging he has ever done. He also said that the personality of his character Riggin is the most dissimilar to himself or any he has ever played. 3. Because the movie was carefully rehearsed and shot in sequence, editing took only 2 weeks. There are only 16 visible cuts in the entire film. 4. The movie was largely shot inside Broadway's St. James Theater. Michael Keaton and the rest of the cast had to adapt to Alejandro G. Iñárritu's rigorous shooting style, which required them to perform up to 15 pages of dialogue at a time while hitting precisely choreographed marks. 5. Emma Stone filmed the movie during a break from filming The Amazing Spider-Man 2, also shot in New York City. Did you know for The Jungle Book 2, a plan for The Jungle Book 3 involved Baloo and Shere Khan being captured and sold off to a circus in Russia? So Mowgli, Shanti, Ranjan, and Bagheera would have to save them, and Shere Khan would have changed his ways because of his capture. Corey Burton would have replaced Tony Jay as the voice of Shere Khan. But after John Lasseter became CEO of Disney and Pixar, and due to the film's lackluster box office returns, the idea, along with ideas for several other Disney sequels, were scrapped. 2. Clint Howard, who voiced in The Jungle Book as Hathi Jr., was the only voice actor that was still active at the time this film was released. He once stated that if he was made aware of this project, he probably would have lobbied the makers to have a voice role in it, though obviously not reprising his character role, but a different character. It would have made him the only actor to voice in both films. 3. The film is regarded by many to be the weakest of the animated Disney theatrical sequels. 4. This is one of Phil Collins's 4 favorite movies he's ever done, the other 3 being Balto, Disney's Tarzan, and Brother Bear. Did you know for Hachi, A Dog's Tale, Hachi is portrayed by 3 dogs, Chico, Layla, and Forrest. After filming ended, Chico was adopted by coach Mark Harden, whose team trained the dogs in the film. 2. To age Hachi, in addition to using makeup to dull the colors of his coat, tiny weights were used to make his ears and tail droop. 3. After the successful release of the original Japanese film, Hachiko, Richard Gere was looking for a project to helm that he could watch alongside his young son, Homer, and an American adaptation would fit the bill. 4. A bronze statue of the Japanese dog Hachiko was unveiled at the train depot at Woonsocket Depot Square, where the film was shot. It is an exact replica of the bronze statue of Hachiko, which resides in front of Shibuya Station in Japan. 5. Richard Gere said, "These are not the kind of dogs you can buy with treats. They either like you or they don't. An Akita makes a connection or it doesn't." Akitas are very discerning and particular dogs, and the trainers were very apprehensive about me meeting the dogs because these dogs make up their mind right away, and if they don't like you, there is no going back. Did you know for Sonic the Hedgehog 2, director Jeff Fowler wanted the film's portrayal of Knuckles to be reminiscent of his early appearances and said, "His entire existence is about honor and about being a warrior," describing him as a force of nature. Idris Elba prepared for the role by exploring the character's backstory and identity. 2. The film's plot is based on the video games Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and Sonic the Hedgehog 3, where Sonic and Tails must stop Dr. Robotnik, who has gotten his hands on the Master Emerald and has tricked Knuckles into aiding him against them. 3. Colleen O'Shaughnessy, who voices Tails, nearly cried when she finally met Jim Carrey. She went up to him to introduce herself and assumed he didn't know who I was. She said, "Hi, I'm Colleen. I play Tails." He grabbed both of my hands and bent over and went, "I know." And it was so sweet. He had the sweetest smile on his face, and I was like, "I'm gonna cry." And I know he said something after that, and I'm sure I said things too, but I have no idea beyond that what either of us said, she stated.